For the first few years, when I got my first job teaching orchestra, I never really took the time to flesh out a structured curriculum. And I just used a combination of like a couple method books, some concert music, and I just called that my curriculum. And I just went through it at the pace that my students could follow along with, and I didn't think much about it until I showed up to a contest woefully underprepared after several wake-up calls. And this was particularly true for my younger students and my less advanced performing groups, because those kids need a lot more structure to do better. I finally stopped blaming my external circumstances like, my students didn't practice enough, or there's too much standardized testing, or those unhinged judges, right? Well, it takes a bit to get going, but the good news is that later in this video, I'm going to introduce a tool that I developed that can help you get started, and I'm giving it away 100% for free. It won't cost you anything except maybe an hour of your time, and I wish I had this tool earlier in my teaching career because it would have saved me from making some painful mistakes. Welcome to Teaching Orchestra. It's the beginning of the school year, and it's time to start thinking about what we want to do this year. What are our goals? What do we want to accomplish? And how are we going to get there? When I hear the word curriculum, I want to get up and not just run, but flat out sprint as fast as I can, as far away as I can, as quickly as possible, because 99.9% of the time when we talk about curriculum, it's in a mixed curricular setting. It's a whole thesaurus worth of buzzwords, and it doesn't have our specific individual goals in mind. So what? We just teach through the year without curriculum? We just teach on the fly? I mean, honestly, a lot of people probably do that, and I did that earlier in my career. I mean, honestly, I used to do that, and there were several moments where I had these rude awakenings around certain points of the year, like concerts, contests, auditions. And I felt all this pressure because I suddenly realized that my students and I were going to be held accountable for how they're about to perform. And I know I don't have enough time to get them to improve because it's like we got a week and we have these key areas that we need to reinforce and we don't have enough time. So why not start from these places in the year, your concerts, your contests, your auditions, and work backwards? Okay, I have a concert in October. What do my students need to know before then? Okay, we have a contest coming up in March. What should my students be sounding like? All right, so I hope I've convinced you to give this a try. And if you take a look at this, you might be able to change some of the outcomes that you have in front of you. All right, here it is. This is my yearly curriculum that I developed in Canva. And in the video description, you can click on the template link and play around with it to get it to your liking. I like Canva because it helps me to visualize. I like to color code things, like the differentiated learning models that they always talk about. Anyway, you can zoom in, you can zoom out, all this fun stuff, just to, if you want to look at it the whole year, if you want to look at a month, just whatever you want. As you're navigating around, I also put plenty of these boxes, and you can change what's in the boxes, but I like the different colors because it helps me visualize better. All right, so let's come in here and let's just say okay, we've got a contest late in March, and I'm just gonna grab one of these boxes and I'm just gonna retitle it SC for spring contest. And it's going to be towards the end of March. I'm going to put one here. And I'm also going to drag one down here. Oops, let's line this up. And I'm going to just make a line and just this is going to be my line in the sand. From here to here, spring contest. And, let's make this line a little thicker. And let's make it a red line because, spring contests are scary. All right, so that's our spring contest. So what do we need to do before our spring contest to get ready? Because we got a whole lot of year before this date. And if we show up to our spring contest and we're like, oh goodness, I did not work on vibrato, bowings, intonation, that's a problem. And some of these techniques we can learn faster than others. We can learn certain bowings a lot faster than we can learn intonation, for instance. So let's say the first time I address intonation is like when I freak out 2 weeks before the contest and I'm like, we got to start learning intonation here. And we got to spend all day on it because we're not good at intonation. Oh no, and spring break is right here. Well, it's not going to happen. Sorry. We should have been thinking about this way earlier in the year. So where should we start programming intonation? Well, probably in August, right? All right, so we're going to take intonation here and we're going to slap it here on our grid. When does your school start? The first week of August, second week of August, third week of August? Okay, so earlier in the year, just tuning your open strings could take a little while, and especially depending on your class size, you could spend 10, 15 minutes just tuning your kids. So let's say for like the first week anyway, it's going to look a bit like this, and maybe like week 2, we can say, we're faster at tuning our open strings, so we can spend a little bit less time on our intonation. And if we want to get more specific, we can go in here like, what are we going to do inside of our intonation block? Well, we're going to tune. Okay, we're going to work on finger patterns. Okay, that's always good to work on. Okay, we can work on some intonation games. Students love to play games, so we can gamify some stuff. Okay, so what else are we going to work on? So for me, tone is always a priority. So let's get some tone going. We'll put it down here. And for me, tone's always a priority because tone affects everything else that we do. So I might give it 10 minutes to work on tone. And we've got a little bit of a block here. So maybe we can do some rhythm over here. And we can use this for a couple of weeks. I put some more of these things over here to divide the class, just so that they're easier to grab. If that annoys you, you can just delete it and move everything up. That's fine. Also, like, if your class is shorter, then don't go up to 65 minutes. My classes are 50 minutes. So during this time, though, everything after 50 minutes, we do have 5-minute passing periods. And sometimes I like to put stuff in the passing periods for students to do, like, hey, get out your instrument, get out, make sure you rosin your bow. Maybe I'll put a rhythm on the board and I'll have them start shadow bowing the rhythm while they get ready for class. Maybe during the first week, we're working on some rhythm here. And definitely want to work on some bowings. And that will depend on the level. And maybe for this week here, we start bowings around here because we already did rhythm up here. So we're in good shape. And introduce a little bit of concert music. That might be good. Now, at this point of the year, in my 50-minute class, I'm spending like 5 minutes on concert music and 45 minutes on involved technique, right? And as I get through the year, what happens is I can start combining some of these things. Like I can start combining intonation and tone together, doing my long tones with finger patterns at the same time, or doing finger patterns with rhythm. So I can start to merge these blocks together and then have more time for concert music. Okay, maybe later in the year, I'll have more time for music history, maybe some theory. The beginning of the year, it might not be advantageous to start talking about history and all kinds of stuff because, we got to make sure that this gets taken care of. And at our contests, they don't care what our music theory or music history understanding is like. They just want to know how we play. So maybe we'll save that for after the concert or sprinkle it in lightly until that happens if we have time. So far, I went in, we fleshed this out a little bit more, but we've been dealing with sort of big picture concepts here. And I recommend that you start there and then go fill in the gaps later. Like, what general concepts are you going to work on? How much time are you going to spend on it? And then figure out what you're going to do in that time to teach those skills. When you start doing that, it could change your time slots. Like, maybe you start teaching through your lesson and you find out that you can do some of this stuff in less time, or maybe it takes more. Usually when you introduce a new exercise, it takes a little bit longer. But once they get accustomed to it, it takes less time the next day. So you can be a little bit more flexible, and that sort of stuff usually gets developed in your daily or weekly lesson plans, but this is just a general outline for what you're going to do through the year so that you hit your target goals. Okay, so getting more specific, like, how do you figure out what to put in these blocks? Like, we got to work on these basic concepts, but how do you figure out how to teach it and how much time it's going to take and that kind of stuff? So I can tell you how you probably shouldn't do this, and that's don't start on page 3 of your method book the first day, and then second day review page 3 and maybe start page 4, because this method book wasn't written with your goals in mind, your students in mind. It's just a general thing. So you might have to skip around the book quite a bit or look for other ways to teach that are more efficient. And if you need ideas on how to teach by rote, which is something that I do quite a bit at the beginning of the year, you can go to the Teaching Orchestra YouTube channel. And, this is easy to get to, right? Because you're already a subscriber and you can just go to your subscription page. But once you get into the page, you can go and look at playlists. And you can kind of see how I've organized my content here. And if you need ideas on how to teach certain skills by rote, season 1 is where it's at. There's a lot of different videos that I do where you can teach lots of different techniques. And so let's just say you want to work on intonation. Okay, well, we can go in here into the intonation page. And what we can do is we can look for these demos or demonstration exercises. Demo, 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 demo. See all these demos here, and you can go into them and just see how I teach certain things. Now, I filmed this during the height of the pandemic, so we're all masked up and everything, and I kind of played it up a little bit by dressing up like I was in a laboratory or something, but those were the days, right? Anyway, you can go through here and get some ideas, kind of figure out how long it's going to take to do some of this stuff, and then you can sort of program it into your class periods. If you teach out of a book, that's pretty awesome. You can just go through the book and you can just pick out the exercises that address the rhythms you want to work on or address the other skills that you want to work on. And unfortunately, like for me in my classroom, like the way I organize my teaching is not the same way they organize the books. So I don't use any of those books. I just do everything by rote with technique. And then for my literacy, that's where we work on like the etudes, solos, concert music, that kind of stuff. And if you want to organize your technique around the concert music that you're playing, you can go into some of these videos. If I've happened to do a video over the concert piece that you're working on, you can just click on some of this stuff, and then I have teaching companions that go with all these things that have all of the exercises built into it so that your content can be relatable to what you're doing in the concert music. For me, it's just a way to organize things and make it relatable. I feel like the stuff coming out of the method books and even like scales and etudes, especially for the younger students and for the students that need remediation, they don't always find that relative to what they're doing. Now, the more you do this and the more you stick to it, the more you're probably going to see how little rehearsal time you actually have. You're going to be held accountable to these time slots, and maybe you realize, oh geez, I didn't get to this or that or the other thing. Okay, well, why not? And then you'll notice all these little time vampires that are sucking your productivity away. Oh man, I spent 15 minutes working with a slippery peg, or I got totally derailed by that kid who asked excellent questions and I expounded for like 15 minutes on the nuance of the philosophies on cello setup. Should it be more horizontal or vertical? Leaning forward, time gone. Pro tip, if you put your student's favorite concert piece last, they tend to distract you less because they really want to get to Richard Meyer's Dragon Hunter 2. The hunter becomes the hunted, right? Oh, time to pack up. And they say, hey, we didn't get to The Revenge of the Dragon by Richard Meyer. And you'll say, well, maybe next time you'll write your questions down and give them to me at the end of class. Or maybe you'll rent your instrument from a company that pays a little more attention to quality control or whatever. If you script out your plans for every day and you keep an eye on the clock, you'll become super task-oriented and you'll become hyper-aware of these distractions. Now, there can be a downside to this, and you need to be flexible or else it could stress you out and maybe stress out your students too if you keep yelling. I'm like, we got 5 minutes to learn vibrato, ready, go. And it's like 4 minutes and 50 seconds in and they're still struggling. And what are you going to do? You're going to say, time's up, you lose. No, are you going to allow for extra time? Are you going to say, okay, well, that's enough for today. Let's pack up and work on it tomorrow, or let's go back to something else and work on something different, But anyway, if you need more teaching ideas, and let's go back to the Teaching Orchestra YouTube channel playlist and look at Season 5, Episode 10. And I have the sample rehearsal here. And this is just the meat of what I do here, and I'd say a typical rehearsal. And I think I did a pretty decent job in this rehearsal, sticking to my plan. I picked some technique exercises from the teaching companions. I related them to some concert music for one of the pieces I don't have a teaching companion for, and I just made up some exercises for that. Maybe eventually I will make a teaching companion for that piece and put it on the website. But I would do some exercise, do some technique, fill in those gaps. I would play the piece through. Then I would go in and fix some of the problems that showed up. And I got through all 3 concert pieces, and I even had some time to sight read at the end, in about 45 minutes. A little bit of this video is setup, and a little bit of this video I think is conclusion. But most of it is teaching. So in 45 minutes, I think I accomplished quite a bit. Was it perfect? No. Those perfect rehearsals don't actually exist. Not in my classroom anyway. Could I have done things better? Absolutely. And just an aside, recording yourself really helps. It generates some awareness. But also, when the cameras are on, the students behave a little differently. And they all agreed to be filmed, and they thought it would be fun, and they knew it was going to be watched by other orchestra teachers. So you're going to have to trust me on this. They were on their best behavior. Not that they're bad students otherwise. That's not true. But we can't pretend that not having cameras on them don't have an influence, right? Also, I think that this video came out in December. Okay, so it wasn't August, so we've had over 3 months to establish expectations, routines, and these exercises that they were doing. It wasn't their first time to do them. They've been doing them for a while. They're smart kids, but look, having kids try the exercises for the first time, that's going to be a completely different video. Anyway, go check it out and see for yourself. Students love structure. They may not think they do, but when the class is complete chaos, they're not really having fun. Students love playing their instruments. Don't believe me? What's the first thing they start doing when you talk for more than 30 seconds? They start plucking, or they start noodling, or whatever, right? They want to play. So let them play. Hey, give this a try this year. It's a minimal investment, and see how it improves your contest scores, or see how much more relaxed you are at your next concert. Or maybe I'm totally wrong, and you can drop me some hate in the comment section below. Whatever makes you a better teacher, I guess, right? Please go to the video description and click on the link. It should take you to the Canva website and give you a copy of the template, and you can play around with it. It's gamification, right? Like what we do with the kids. Look, it's blocks. It's basically Minecraft, right, Zoomers? All right, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.